All right, in this example, what I want to do is go over what I think is the best use case for Sales Navigator, the way that it presents data to us, how it can be filled with errors, how we need to understand implied data, how we have both leads and account filters, what those mean, save searches, all these things. Let's get into it. Probably going to be about a 25-minute tutorial, but it is a really powerful tool if used properly. And let's make sense of it real quick here. Okay, so first off, the hierarchy, of course, is Sales Navigator, and of course it is tied to my account. So I'm illustrating when I talk about second degree connections, I'm illustrating my own second degree connections. First of all, what we're presented with are the lead filters. If we pop into leads and accounts, now I do want to spend a couple minutes talking about why I believe the lead side, which is the person side of Sales Nav, is much more valuable than the account and or the company side of LinkedIn Sales Navigator. Okay, if we have a quick look, we see that the company side already has some filters, but we also have personal attributes as well. Well, that's something that's really great for us to know, because we now know that we can use some company filters and personal filters together to find the ideal people within these companies. Now, of course, LinkedIn also provides us, or Sales Navigator also provides us with the account side of things. Notice there's far less filters. Now, it does provide us a few other attributes, such as things like funding rounds, annual revenue. Of course, that's a lagging indicator. But it also presents us with a few challenges. So let's just grab any filters here. We're in the United States and we're in professional services, and we are looking for companies 11 to 50 employees. So we now have 110,000 results. Obviously, that's a large data set. We could drill down even more. And then LinkedIn provides us with this, or Sales Nav provides us with this big, beautiful select all button. When I hit it, please notice that it only says 25 selected. This is where the problems start, because a lot of you will be using Sales Navigator to pull out the URL once you've completed your search. Notice I said search, not list. So once you've completed your search, you'll pull out the URL and you'll put it into another tool, Expandy, HeyReach, LaGrowth Machine. And this is where some of those issues pop up, especially with Expandy, because it allows us to automatically set a schedule for the tool to come back in to Sales Navigator and extract those fresh second degree connections, or potentially add to a larger list than what the scrape limit was, which is roughly 2,500 people. So I don't want to confuse you. If you're using Sales Navigator to automate, then the account side poses even more issues for you, which most of you will be using the account side to automate, or the Sales Nav contacts to be added to an automation tool. Okay. So from here, we have 25 people that are of the, or pardon me, 25 companies of the 110,000 results. But of course, we have 43 employees, 25, 28, 11 employees. So this is going to be a lot of people. But if we only have 25, that is only page one. And what we would have to do in theory, which is not impossible, is we would have to add them to a list. We can choose any one of the list, AWS, whatever, it doesn't matter. We're just running a tutorial here. And we've now saved 25 people to the AWS list. And we would have to go down to page 2, select all again, and then go into the list and save it. So obviously we can see that there's some challenges with this. On the operational side of saving a list and building lists to then ultimately save searches. And I will explain the difference in a minute here. So one of the nice features is that it does provide us with view current employees. So what I really want to point out here is Another reason why I believe the lead side of Sales Navigator is much better than the account side. One, we have more filters. Two, it allows us to speak to the people within companies, not the companies themselves. Of course, we're always speaking to people, and so we can do the work we need to do on the lead side. But one of the issues is, I think even Sales Navigator supports this, because we have view current employees, and if you keep your eye up here, I hit view current employees, and what we end up getting are the companies from the 25, that list of 25, because we had clicked select all on the last page, and it pushes them over into this company. Now we have 861 total people inside those 25 different companies. Well, if LinkedIn itself is allowing us to start our search on the account side, and then it's pushing us over to the lead side, my question is, why don't we just start there? Why don't we forget about all the technical challenges when it comes to building lists for automation, and we just start talking to the people, because ultimately it's people that we speak to. Okay, I'm going to leave that tutorial there. I guess I do have one more comment that I want to make. That AWS list, because I did mention lists and searches and the differences, that list that we just made is down here in workflows. So from the top, we scroll on down, it's in workflows. And if I hit account lists, there is that AWS list sitting right there. Okay, that is how we would access it. And of course, then from there, we could filter down the people within those companies to be founders, CEOs, chief marketing officers, software engineers, whatever we decide that is our best ICP for our use case. All right, now, from here, I'm going to start speaking solely about the lead side, which is the people side of Sales Navigator. Let's chew through a bunch of these filters. It won't take us too long, and a lot of them just simply are not going to be that useful to us. Current company, most people will not need to worry about the exact company that they're in. We're just looking for people that are in this kind of company, not the actual company name. You can see here that this is the exact company. From here, we have headcount. So let's pretend that we are looking for software engineers in the United States that are working for companies between 1 and 200 employees strong. So that's the headcount. So here we have 100 million results at this point. We're keeping an eye on this parameter here up and to the right. And these are currently, all we filtered is companies that are between 1 and 200. So there's 100 million on this planet or in Sales Navigator that we have been able to query. From here, past company probably aren't too keen on that unless you have maybe a recruitment or you're scouting for talent. Company type. The aspect that I will speak about here is I really don't find too many clients who are excited about, or who are too concerned whether they're public or private, or whether they're self-employed or self-owned or government agencies, as long as they meet our software engineers, for our example, in the United States, for example. They don't really care how they did the paperwork or whether they're publicly traded or what have you. The only time I really find this whole company type to be useful is in the nonprofit or educational institution aspect. So if you're selling to charities or you're doing charitable works, then obviously nonprofits. If we are selling to academies or colleges or universities, of course, educational institutions is our best way in the door there. Otherwise, I typically just leave it open, which by, of course, default means you're open to all of them. From here, we have company headquarters location. I'm going to use the United States as an example here. And I know a lot of people, when they talk about Sales Navigator, they talk about their products, they say, oh, I can sell to the world. And I appreciate that you believe that every person needs your widget or whatever you're selling. But at the end of the day, that is a real sign of maybe a lack of understanding your ICP. And if you are using software like LinkedIn, and you're using Sales Navigator that costs you $100 a month, and maybe another tool like Expandy or HeyReach that's going to cost you another $80 to $100 a month, you're starting to get invested in a tech stack. And if you're doing that, why do you not want it to work as quickly and as swiftly as possible? So obviously, it's a whole other conversation of we need to know our ICP or what our potential lookalike audiences are, but understanding that you don't sell to the world. In the future, after you've sold 100 million of whatever you're selling in the United States, then sure, then you can open up to those geos. That's up to you. But at the end of the day, you saying I can sell to the world just really tells everyone that you don't know who you actually sell to. Let's move on. In our example here, we are targeting companies that are between 1 and 200, and we have headquarters location of the United States. So this has given us 35 million results. While we are talking about the headquartered location, I'd like to scroll on down to the personal attribute of where the person is located. So obviously, a lot of companies hire remote workers. But if you want decision makers, or if you're looking for someone who is, maybe in a C-suite, they're arguably walking into a building throughout the week. And so that they're at least going to be headquartered, and their profile is going to be set to the same city or state that the company is headquartered in. Of course, understanding that there's a lot of people that have Delaware corps and they're down in Texas, for example. So understanding your ICP again is important, and understanding who you're ultimately selling to. In our use case, we're going to go back and we're going to type in the United States. Notice that we go from 35 million to 29 million. So it's a significant optimization. We shed 6 million people that at the end of the day, we can only reach out to so many. But that is an optimization that we're pretty keen on. And it also goes back to me talking about implied data, that we are implying that this person is not just a software founder that is out in the pools of Bali, that he's taking what he's doing pretty seriously, and he's walking into an office every day. I love remote work, don't get me wrong, but if you have a team of 50 people, you're there for your team ultimately. Okay, so back up to the role, because we talked about the headquarters location as well as the personal location. We now have function, current job title, seniority, and I want to talk about function. I simply don't use it. I don't find much use case for it. Maybe someone else has great results with it, but going to the engineering department is not as good as speaking to the engineer. And so we use the example of software engineer, which is a current job title. And so let's type in software engineer. Perfect. We have a software engineer here. And while we have a software engineer, I'm just going to leave that one job title because that's going to be good enough for my ICP. We have 120,000 results. And just because I love playing with this, and we really need to always keep our eye on the upper right, just by simply saying that we want companies in the United States that have 1 to 200 employees and that they are software engineers, we have effectively halved our list, because we're saying I don't want those software engineers that are in Eastern Europe or in Asia or wherever. I want them in the United States, and those are the people that I want to speak to, because for whatever our ICP is just making sense for that. But understand that is a significant optimization, again, by just demanding that the person and the company are both headquartered in the United States. Okay, so we have job title. I really find job title is much better than even seniority level. So in here, we have, of course, there's many different attributes when it comes to seniority level. One, I'll talk about the CXO being the entire C-suite, not to be confused with the Chief Experience Officer, which many people think. But if I do Chief Executive Officer, actually comes up in here. But I, of course, showed you that the CXO is the entire C-suite. I cannot actually effectively target just the CEO or the CMO or the CTO if I choose, but I can do it through job title. So that is why I prefer job title again. One little mention about the seniority level here is if I go down to senior, this is confusing to many different people, because senior makes you think, oh, he's a senior VP or a senior executive or senior whatever. That is not actually true. They could be a senior claims adjuster in an insurance company. Well, that is a senior role in a mid-level, lower level department within an insurance company. So I want you to really be careful, because senior is arguably very broad when it comes to layering that targeting in. And you can always keep an eye on things up here. And of course, if you have job titles saying you want them to be a software engineer, and then you start to layer in any one of these, you are narrowing your audience, not broadening your audience. You will broaden your audience when you start to tack on, software engineer, software developer, all in the same field. Okay, moving on. Past job title probably doesn't matter to you unless you're a recruiter. Years in current company. The years in current company and years in current position, I don't find much use case, but I do have clients that have actually effectively targeted CEOs that have that 8, 9, 10, 12 years in a position, and they're going to be potentially burnt out, and this is a coach that's going in. That is one of the better areas, or one of the better use cases for this example. But I find everyone is so transitory now. Gone are the days where you go to your dad's the car salesman, and you buy the car that he's been dealing with this guy for 40 years, sort of things. It's just people are in new jobs, out the next, and they just move so quickly now that I don't believe that has much merit. But again, I've used it for coaches that were seeking that sort of that burnout stage, or that stagnant stage for C-suite and managers and stuff. Okay, moving on down. So personal here, we have, we've already talked about the geo industry. Of course, you can target any industry. You can exclude, you can include, and you can exclude. Of course, if you are including, you are by nature excluding, but you can play around with these things. And if you really want to keep your data clean, my experience is if you're sort of 70 to 80% correct when it comes to targeting inside a Sales Navigator, you're actually doing something really well. This is riddled with inefficiencies and errors, and so it's a platform with 1 billion users, and those users all had to input data, and they change jobs, they change passions, they change companies, whatever it is. And of course, people don't rush back to LinkedIn to make sure that it's completely up to date. And so we have to accept that there's people that have come to the platform and have just exited and never really used it, never did much with it. And even here we have software engineers, consulting engineers. So it's obviously picking up on just the engineer aspect of it, and maybe there's something else in her bio. But you can see there's already wavering in, co-founder, software engineer, founder. It doesn't even mention software engineer. And we are specifically targeting their job title as a software engineer using LinkedIn's own terminology instead of a software developer, for example. So we have to accept that there's some wavering here. I guess the new term is hallucinations when it comes to all the AI and stuff. Moving on down. First name, last name, probably not a big deal. In profile language, let's keep an eye on this. I bet it doesn't move at all. But when it comes to LinkedIn, this is LinkedIn implies on the ad side, basically, or essentially on the ad side for sure, that everyone speaks English. And most people are saying that they speak English so that they're marketable to an English-speaking audience, even if they have a light command of the language. So you kind of understanding the platform, targeting Spanish or targeting English or any other language is up to you. But you can see out of all these people that it's not a huge deal, that these are not massive optimizations when it comes to the language side of things. Years of experience, again, everyone's sort of doing their thing, changing jobs all the time, and we can go and move on from there. Groups, I don't love them. People join them. Actually, I find like my Sales Nav is quite glitchy. I think I can find, let's do Shopify. So I have, only two Shopify groups on this platform. I find that this software, that no HubSpot groups, not one group has the word HubSpot. And so I just find like this is just so typical of Sales Nav and LinkedIn, is that like, why aren't you giving me a result here? So That's why I just don't trust it much. Groups I find are somewhat of a wasteland. We can't control a lot of the nuances of a group, such as where they are. That's more on the messaging side of things. But we can't really control how active they are and all these sort of things. So I don't love groups. I have successfully used them. I think it was more a use case of maybe real estate investors was a group. We kind of got a client in the door, and then you can actually, with some automation tools, even though there's maybe a 4-day cooling period once you've gotten into the group, where you can actually message people within the group without being connected, wink, wink, nudge, nudge. And so there are some workaround hacks that you can do, but I don't love them because people join them and they just disappear. This platform has 1 billion users, and out of those users, I am told only 400 million people log in, arguably every day. So that's still a sizable amount of people, or that are even active users, sort of thing. So you have 400 million people that are active users, which is every month is technically an active user of a platform if you log in once every 30 days. And then from there, I've heard sort of 10-12% are actually logging in every day on LinkedIn. So us nerds who are logging in every day trying to monetize this platform and build our businesses, we're a small group at the end of the day. That's what I've been told by LinkedIn. Okay, so from here we have groups. Schools, not a terrible filter if you're actually going after particular universities. Also, and we can talk about this later in the tutorial, but things like race and creed and religion and all these sort of things, they can be targeted with nuances. I actually had a client call me and he says he wants to sell his clothing brand to African Americans. All right, he wants to sell to African Americans, and he told me, I want to target by school, and I pushed back on that. He says, no, this school is 98% African American. I said, okay, good to know. I had never thought of that use case before on how to target someone that would be best suited for our particular product. So you can start to think outside the box when it comes to how can we target people that are going to be the best use case for who are the best ICPs and who might receive our products the best. So schools may have some merit for you. Coming back up, this buyer intent area is something that I don't use. You can see it doesn't even have much use for me, and there's 120,000 people here, and there's no buying intent apparently out of all these people. I don't love that section at all. Best path in, let me get back up here. Connections. So connections, this is very important. We make first degree connections out of second degree connections, and we make more second degree connections out of third degree connections. We do not go from third to first. In fact, if you do that a lot, LinkedIn will flag you for this because it believes you're using automation, and it's probably correct. Obviously, on top of that, when we're messaging people, I like to use messaging that is like, hey, I see that we share common connections here on LinkedIn. With your permission, would love to professionally connect. And so if that's not factual and I'm using third degree connections and we don't share any connections, then I'm going to reduce my efficiency. Plus, people will, I've seen it where I have one connection with someone and I have 50 connections with someone, and they'll sometimes even message you back like, Matt, you have 50 or 150 similar connections. That is significant. Welcome to my network. We basically share it. Ha ha ha. And so we're just so much more trustworthy. We're just look much more venerable when we have a lot of shared connections. We're going to get through the door a lot better, which increases our success rate. So if you're automating with your Sales Navigator list, do not include thirds unless I've done this list with like 500 people, 300, 400, 500 people, and turned it off. It wasn't a consistent everyday, month after month automating 2/3. I do not suggest that. You will be flagged, but I have for very small use cases, 2, 3, 4, 500 people, targeted groups of second and third degree connections. So I'm going to layer in second degree connections here. And, software engineers are not something that I reach out to a lot. And you can see that we have 120,000 people that drop down to 3,000. I call this sort of my depth of market. So I know that I have 120,000 people that are software engineers in the United States that are located in the United States and are working for companies that are 1 to 200 people strong. Okay, let's move on. We're almost done. So the connections of, this is actually, you can type in your first degree connections and you can actually connect to their pool. So do you have friends? Do you have enemies? Do you have frenemies that you want to connect with on LinkedIn that, that broker, that sales guy, whatever it is there someone that you can think of? That's up to you to make that decision. Past colleague, you can see there's obviously not much merit there. Shared experiences, I believe I have a better filter. Change jobs. Okay, we're not recruiters, so I don't think it has much value. But if you're a recruiter, then hey, this has value for you. Now, this is one of my most favorite filters. This is implied data on LinkedIn, where it is implying that they are an active user of LinkedIn. If I just told you that there's 1 billion users and only 400 million use the platform every month, then we have a majority, 600 million people that don't even log in. They've come to the platform, they've set up their profile, and they've gone. They got the job, they moved on, they retired, they don't care. So why do we want to waste any connection efforts for those individuals that are going towards an inbox that is never going to be seen? So they'll never get the notification. They won't read our message. They won't click connect or accept. And it'll just go into the ether. So we obviously want to increase our chances, and this is the button to do it. But notice what it does. It takes our 3,000 results and it drops it down to, posted on LinkedIn, down to 500. Any of these people who have posted on LinkedIn in the last 30 days, which is what it used to be called, are in this pool. Now, anyone who's posted or reposted anything, as I understand it, but you can see that software engineers are not really LinkedIn guys or gals. They're not like eager to post on LinkedIn. You'll find like founders are, because they're using the platform to build their brands and they build their companies. And so you'll see these nuances between these niches, but software engineers are not heavy posters on LinkedIn. And I've seen them as low as 10% of the group, in 50, 60, 80% of the group. I've seen before as well, some of those people that are really pushing. Certainly if we were to look up like real estate agents, they're going to at least have posted once a month as they build their brand and awareness on LinkedIn. Okay, so posted on LinkedIn is one of my favorite filters because it absolutely tells us that person, at least at a high probability, is somewhat of an active user on the platform. Now, going back up here to a quick little discussion about that depth of market, which I mentioned, because we started with 120,000, and once we added second degrees, we dropped to 3,000, and notice that we only have 6,000. So this is a pretty significant optimization for software engineers in particular, is this posted on LinkedIn. Pretty cool. All right, now we're almost done here. The workflow that we talked about, you can pretty much forget about this whole section. This is LinkedIn's AI. I don't love it. And then from here, the account lists and lead lists. That goes back to the earlier conversation I had about accounts, where we used AWS, I believe, as the example. There is the AWS list that we can pull from, and that is how we bring in the account lists, but not to be confused with searches, which we're going to talk about in a minute here. And then from there, there's things where you can integrate your CRM. It requires upgrading and a significant cost every month for a company. And then people you've interacted with, and I don't use this ever, and then saved leads and accounts. I don't love all this stuff. So I really don't use workflows, to be honest with you, very often at all. LinkedIn, the Sales Nav does not need to be super scary. It is a great place. I think there's a lot of tools coming on the market, certainly Clay, that actually offer more usability and more functionality. Plus, it's not just LinkedIn's data. It uses other data providers to help enrich these individuals on this platform. So, Sales Nav used to be the end all and be all, and it's not anymore, which is kind of cool to see. Okay, so we talked about posted on LinkedIn. We have that set in. The one thing that I want to talk about quickly is saved searches, search keywords. So the keywords, if you can find the people in here, then I believe it's better to use the actual filters than keywords. Keywords is where we're giving LinkedIn or Sales Nav even more room to waver on us, and we already know that we're going to be 70 to 80% wrong with the data that comes back to us. Sometimes egregiously wrong. Like in in Eastern Europe or something like that. You're like, what is going on here? I've targeted the US. And they're just completely off. They're in Spain. They're in wherever they are. They're, anywhere in the world as an example. Okay, so keywords. Now we can talk about, let's say we want a marketing manager. So marketing manager, let's spell things properly here. Okay, so we have a marketing manager, which is great. I'm just going to add that in. It probably will be a very small set of individuals. So 68 results. Now, now because we have two words, in LinkedIn, what you can do is you can start to use what's called Boolean search parameters, tactics, whatever you want to call them. And we go and throw some quotations between marketing manager. And what we're doing is we're forcing LinkedIn to provide us with a job title or a keyword that is both marketing and manager, not just manager or marketing. So this is an important tactic inside of LinkedIn. Notice that it brought us down to 7. So obviously if we had a larger data set, such as the 120,000 people that we had earlier, then this would be more useful. Again, I really do remain that if we can find them in the filters, you're eliminating a lot of headache in the error phase of things with this tool. So this is, we're putting quotations around it. It's forcing us to sort of remove the broad match feature of LinkedIn. Now, there's also other tactics that we can use where we have marketing manager. But what we could do is they're in marketing, and we can put the word or in between it. Notice that it's a capital or. And what we have is 241 results, but what we can remove is we are now asking LinkedIn that we're saying, give us a marketing manager with a little bit of room to wiggle. But when we say marketing or manager, they can have the word marketing or the word manager in their profile. So obviously, true to the or, we also can do and that will just completely throttle this right down, because now we need to have marketing and manager. That's pretty much it. I think I'm probably going a little deeper than I need to with this keywords feature. But what we can do is we can use she, her as well. I don't know how many software engineers we'll have. We have 5. But what we're now using is the ability to use pronouns for us to drill down. So this is a great use case I have female coach clients that are interested in speaking only to women. Okay, great. We can use the she, her pronouns to start filtering down women on the platform. So you can only on the ad side can you filter down by gender. You cannot filter down by gender or religion or race or anything like that on the platform, but I've now just shown you a couple ideas where you actually can. Obviously, there is a whole discussion around people who are using pronouns and that sort of line on their CV, and that's up to you whether those are the right people for you to be speaking to, and that is completely on your side, whether you believe that you should be speaking with a particular group of individuals. And of course you could use groups if it's women who clay, I believe, is an actual group, because I'm pretty passionate about clay. And so I saw a group where it was like women who clay. Well, obviously they're going to largely be women inside that group, and maybe there's an admin that makes sure that there are only women in that group. And so there are tactics for us to find gender and other filtering methods on this platform. Okay, that's it. Thank you for hanging in there. We do have a couple things we need to talk about just before this is over. We need to save the search. I've been talking about these LinkedIn lists or the Sales Nav lists, account lists that we talked about, but we also talked about the searches that we need to save. Once you are done and you see that this is very, I'm testing a lot, I'm exploring a lot, and at the end of the day, what we're doing for ourselves is we are seeing how many people that are really high quality that we can bring into our world that we can ultimately speak to. We know that on the back end of this, there's 3,000 or 6,000 people that are waiting for us, but we're going to start today with the 546 people. It's a great list size. There are limits, certainly when you're outreaching, on how many you can contact a day. So I believe most of you will be using this video for automation, and so I just wanted to highlight that it's okay. We need these tighter lists nowadays because all the tools have limits, and also we need to segment so that we can start having the right conversations with people. For example, hey, I see that we share mutual connections. Would love to professionally connect. Well, that's a pretty great message going to someone. That builds trust. You have that connection already with them. Okay, once you have all your filtering done, you want to hit this saved button. Okay, obviously it's important, but you just click that button. Simply clicking that button will put it into your saved searches. There's our saved search right there. And we can view it, we can rename it, we can do anything we want with that search. Obviously, all it's done at this point is it's taken all of the filters and just used that as the title. Notice here that I have others that I've renamed, because a lot of your searches will be potentially months old before you revisit them again. And so nomenclature is a big thing, naming and making sure that your titles and everything are clear and dated so that you know what happened and where you got them from. From here, most of you will be using this tool for outreach. We now have a saved search. You can see that it's green, that we're saved, and you just have to simply provide your outreach tool, whether it's Expandy, HeyReach, the Growth Machine, whatever it is. Typically, all you need to do is provide them with this URL. So that's it. That's how you make this all work. There's a crash course in making an expensive platform work for you. It's not as scary when you have someone walking it through. Remember implied data, think outside the box, and save your search, name your search, and then come in here, grab that URL, and either put it into your tool or send it to me in Slack, and we can go from there. All right, thank you.